Hey everybody, it's Jeremy. Welcome to a new single-player Dominion series using Sombre's Warhammer Fantasy Mod. We're playing Altdorf. We had a poll between... Who was it? Here, I'll just, pull it up on screen. Wacha straw poll! We had a poll between a bunch of good nations. I wanted to do good nations because I have only basically been playing evil nations in Sombre's Warhammer Fantasy Mod. So we had a poll between the Empire High Elves, Stunties, aka the Dwarves, Bretonia, and the Lizardmen, and Altdorf has it. So, it was pretty competitive there for a while, and then all of a sudden, Altdorf just kind of jumped ahead. So yeah, it be what it be. So yeah, we're gonna play. My God, we're gonna play a little bit of Altdorf. So that should be fun. Let's kick things off. Much like the previous single-player games, this is a big game. It's 22. Because I want to use. I don't have to, but I want to use all of the Warhammer mod nations, because it's cool to just randomly see who the fuck we're next to. And it's cool to just randomly fight them. But, much like the previous ones, I would like to bump the difficulty on a couple of these. And I think it makes sense to try to pick thematic enemies for Altdorf. So I figure we will bump up Vampiria to Mighty. And then I feel like it kind of makes sense to take maybe Khorne and Slaanesh. Maybe not both, but at least one right now. So either Khorne or Slaanesh, or both, right? I think it actually makes sense to do Middenheim as a Mighty, because there's a lot of infighting within the Empire throughout the various ages of Warhammer Fantasy, and Middenheim and Altdorf are consistently rivals. So I think it's fun to make Middenheim, even though they're not really evil, make them a mighty rival of ours. And then I think it definitely makes sense to have a Greenskins faction. So either Black Crag or Bone Nose Tribe, I think would be cool. And that brings us to, so we have Vampiria, we have Middenheim, then we have a Chaos faction, a Greenskin faction, and it's at that point that I'm kind of like, I'm not sure who the fifth should be, because I think 5 is kind of like where it's a nice, solid scenario. I don't really see the Dark Elves as a consistent issue for the Empire. You know, the Elves, all 3 variants are typically off doing their own other thing. Bretonia, typically peaceful. Kislev, typically peaceful. I was thinking maybe Skaven Blight, right? Because those are kind of like a potential issue. Maybe Beastlands instead. But I'm hesitant to do Beastlands because we know the AI on Beastlands is a little wonky because it doesn't research. So, IDK on that one. But I think thematically that might be the way to go, unless we just want to use both Chaos factions or both Greenskin factions. I feel like the Greenskin factions do have quite a bit of variety between the two of them. One is basically like the Savage Orc or the Savage version versus the more Orcish version, I suppose. I should actually play them. They're pretty kind of cool. But they're pretty... I don't know that they're similar. Let's do this. Let's do Slaanesh and Khorne, but let's do Black Crag. Cancel that. We'll do Black Crag as the mighty one, and we'll leave it at that, right? Vampiria, Middenheim, Slaanesh, Khorne, and Black Crag. That seems fun. Okay, cool. Let us take a look at Altdorf, because honestly, I only have a passing understanding. I as a person understand a lot about what Altdorf does from my Warhammer knowledge, but as far as this mod goes, I only have a passing understanding of what they do. I've only glanced at them. I know that they are very jack of all trades, right? Very like spread on the amount of research that they have, etc., etc. So we're gonna take a look and see how that goes. I should have made like a whatever. We'll figure it out as we go. We might have to remake games or do whatever. It's fine. The Empire is the largest and most powerful of the lands of men in the Old World, a mighty nation that stands as the bulwark against the many enemies of man. It is a land where magic, invention, and the courage of mortal men rub shoulders, each an essential weapon in the war against malign powers. The men of the Empire have none of the supernatural strength nor brutal upbringing of the warriors of chaos, nor do they boast the numberless ranks of the vile Skaven, the savage resilience of the greenskin orcs, or uncanny agility of the high elves. Rather, the men of the Empire rely upon faith, steel, and ingenuity. The Empire is split into many provinces, which in theory all hold fealty to the Emperor, but tend to have competing goals. Altdorf is the seat of the Emperor, capital of the Empire, and home to the colleges of magic. The forces of Talabekland, Reichland, Ostermark, and the city-state of Marienburg align behind the crown of Altdorf. Cool. Sweet. Swank. So we are a race of humans. Militarily, we have medium and heavy infantry with extremely heavy cavalry and dedicated missile units. From a magic standpoint, colleges allow access to all non-blood magic, so we have pretty decent casters in almost everything, which is pretty cool. We have strong priests, which I think is kind of indicative of this mod. I think every nation in this mod has a recruitable H3 or has a obtainable H3 that they can then kind of mass obtain. I could be wrong on that though, obviously, right? I haven't played all the nations, but they all seem to have an H3. And then we have standard forts. So we got a lot going on. As we can see, partially this is due to the College of Mages, right? This is just a crazy amount of mages because it's one of basically every path, right? And then we also have some particular knights that we can, knightly orders that we can recruit from. So those are kind of cool. So when you take those out of the running, you actually only have a handful of commanders, which is fine. But we still have a fair number of units. Let's take a look at our sites real quick. We won't go through in detail the heroes or anything like that, but I just kind of want to see what we got. We have 1 air, 1 earth out of the Palace of Altdorf, which enables recruitment of Reichsguard foot, which we will take a further look at. We have the Cathedral of Sigmar, which is 2 fire. Okay, so we have more fire. And 1 astral, which gives us the Archlectors and the War Altars. These are our H3s, and these are our big H3s, our slow-to-recruit trampling H3s. And then we have the University of Altdorf, which gives us Scholars, which are Philosopher 1s, so they recruit better in Sloth rather than Productivity, which is kind of interesting. Especially considering I sincerely doubt, right, like we are going to want to take Sloth because, because a lot of our units are pretty heavy on the resources, right? So this is a trade-off that you have to kind of like decide between. You can get, if you go like Magic 3, Sloth 3, these Scholars, you can only get them in your capital, but they will research like a motherfucker at, what is that, 1619 research for 70 gold. And you're like, yeah, but that's your capital. Yeah, but there's not actually a lot of mages that you want to get out of your capital, truthfully. So that is, it does feel like it's a viable strategy. I just don't know that it's something that we want to do because it's going to mean that we're not going to be able to recruit a lot of our heavy resource units consistently, which might feels bad. And then we have a bunch of other sites, which are all of the rest of our stuff, which we will go into at greater length later on down the road. let us jump into our units first and foremost to kind of see where we lay. So we have right off the bat State Spearmen. These are your run-of-the-mill spear guys with a shield. Hold the line! That's it. I love the way they look, but I don't know that we're going to use a whole lot of them. They are average across the board. They're very cheap, right? Average across the board spear users. Easy to peasy. Next up, we actually have the Flagellants, and these are kind of like the Marignon versions, right? Like, they are recruit anywhere sacreds. Very cheap, but they're also very crappy, right? Like, so even if you were to put a really big stats bless on them, they're just not going to do very well. They're gonna die in droves, and you're gonna have to replace them in droves. They do have Berserker, right? They do have a Flail, which has 2 attacks, so that is nice, but they are also undisciplined, and they're gonna run amok. We could do like explodey blesses on them, right? Where we're like, the when they die they pop kind of scenario. I've seen that work with it. I say work. I've seen that happen in Marignon before, I believe. And it's funny, but I don't know how. It's very meme worthy, right? And it's extremely one note. So possible, but I don't know that that's where we want to go with this. We have our State Halberdiers, and these guys are actually pretty good. Honestly, kind of in line with the Storm Vermin from Skaven Blight, right? A very hard-hitting two-handed weapon, okay-ish protection, and then worse kind of stat line, honestly, compared to the Storm Vermin. But these aren't bad, right? Like, they're cheap enough that you could just have a whole shit ton of them, and you're only really resource constrained on them. But if you go productivity, then, you know, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal. So, interesting stuff. We have just base archers, short bow, really simple stuff, but we can pretty easily, I think, do flaming arrows, so this isn't a bad unit to mass and try to make something up. You have our State's Swordsmen, which are kind of a souped-up version. I say souped-up version of the State Spearmen, but they're just a more fighty version. Higher protection, higher damage weapon, higher resource cost, blah, 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 blah. State's Crossbow, so we have, along with a short bow, we have a crossbow variant. Very useful, very nice, depending on who we're fighting. We have free infantry, which can be recruited outside forts as well, so basically recruited anywhere. And these guys are pretty decent. These guys are very killy for what you're spending. They have a short axe and a short sword and an axe, and they just chop chop. They die in droves, but they chop chop, you know? So. They're also, if you go Turmoil, they're easier to recruit. Very cheap to recruit, actually. 7 gold for something like this is not bad at all. Then we have the Great Swords. These are getting into that. These are like the definition of that heavy infantry tier, right? Mostly baseline stats, but 20 protection because they are encased in armor, and they have a fucking great sword that they will wallop you with. So, pretty cool. Very heavy on the resources. Hard to mass a shit ton of them. Then we have the Reiksguard Foot. This should be only recruited in the capital. This is a somewhat stronger version of the Great Sword, just depending on what you're trying to accomplish, right? The Great Sword is more killy, but the Reiksguard is more survivable because of the shield, basically. So, and they're actually still relatively killy. Their broadsword is still pretty decent. We have a Nobleborn. These are kind of cool. These would be Pistoliers, I think, in a modern variant. To my understanding, the way that Sombre makes this mod, he doesn't include gunpowder weaponry, primarily because it's very hard to replicate in Dominions, right? So these guys would be what your pistoliers are. They instead have hand crossbows, and they're pretty cool, right? The hand crossbow is relatively weak, but it is still a crossbow, right? It's still armor piercing, so it can still get some work done. And they actually do hit decently hard. They have okay-ish protection. Like, these aren't horrible, right? But when you place them up against something like the Order Knight, things start to look a little less exciting, right? The Order Knights are extremely expensive on resources, but they hit pretty hard. These things, when I looked at them, I was like, oh, these aren't actually that good. Like, there's a lot of heavy infantry in the vanilla game that is better than this, right? Like, maybe not at quite as much protection, but way better defense, etc., that type of scenario. But these guys are actually pretty damn good. Their protection is pretty good. That kite shield is really fucking solid, right? Actually really solid. And this lance is a heavy weapon. So this is kind of, I think, almost a little, like, misleading. I don't know if maybe, like, they should be named heavy lance, or if there is a difference between a lance that is a heavy weapon and a heavy lance. But these are heavy weapons, which means they do get their full strength bonus instead of half for charge damage, which means that these guys are hitting for 30 on a lance strike unbuffed. And that kills basically anything. So, like, 5 of these guys are really hard to get going in the early game, but 5 of these guys, they're not sacred, but they don't need to be, because they will instantly murder the first 5 things that they hit, and then they actually chop shop after that, and they're very hard to deal with. New campaign, who dis? Dis be Altdorf. We're playing some Altdorf. Seat of the Emperor! So yeah, pretty cool. And then aside from the Order Knights, we also have the Demigryph orders. And the Demigryphs are interesting. I know Sombre was gonna make adjustments to them. I don't know if he did. I actually think that they are a little whelming, right? For the gold cost, resource cost, and the fact that they are limited recruitment. You can recruit them at any fort, but you can only recruit 1 a month. So it can be very difficult to really mass these guys up. They do have 1 more protection than the Order Knights, but they have the same defense, and they have the same other stats for the most part, right? Slightly higher morale, so they have 2 more points of morale, which is fine, but they actually don't have the lance, which I think is kind of a problem. I think they should have the lance. I remember Sombre saying he was considering adding a lance to them. Maybe I just don't have the right version, but I think I do. We can check that later, but I'm pretty sure I have the most recent version. I downloaded it, like, a couple days ago. So, yeah, without a lance, these guys just end up, you know, they're fine. I guess the Demigryph Talons are 2 attacks, so there is that, right? Maybe that makes up for it. We'll test them out. We'll see how it works. But from what I have heard, they are a little less good. They're more expensive, more difficult to mass, and they're even, like, you put them up against each other, and it's, from what I've heard, the Order Knights will actually kill quite a few Demigryph Knights on the charge, right? Specifically on the charge. After that, you know, it's kind of whatever. But so that's our units, right? No super sacred, right? We could try to do something with the flagellants to make them crazy, you know, massable sacreds all over the place. We could give them some strength buffs pretty easily, right? Like 2 points in earth, 2 points in blood, or not 2 points, but earth and blood for 2 points of strength each. Turns these guys into 19 damage flails with 2 attacks. That could be good. and just mass them everywhere and go from there. We could give them some attack. But it feels like what we're going to do if we do that is put a massive amount into them and then them not do much except for die in droves. You almost had me on the Sea of Thieves hype. Almost. If it weren't for the fact that I'm trying to be good and stay on schedule, I honestly would have considered it, truth be told. If I had videos for this series banked for another week, I probably would have done it. But I am sadly behind. So I wish you all the best, though, with your pirating. So yeah, we've got that. Let's take a look at our commanders. We got the typical scout. This is literally vanilla scout. Nothing else to say. We have state captains, which are almost basically vanilla commanders. I say that, but these guys actually have pretty high protection. They're pretty okay combatants, but there's nothing else super special about them. We're gonna skip the tributes for now. We'll come back to them. We have a general, which is this is pretty neat. Recruit anywhere, 120 leadership, etc., etc. That being said, right? Like I don't know if this is. I haven't played enough nations on Sombre's Warhammer mod, but I'm starting to get the impression that like everyone has an everything, right? Like it's like almost every nation. Like Vampiria was absolutely a Swiss Army knife. Skaven felt like a Swiss Army knife. Altdorf feels like a Swiss Army knife. I don't know if it's just that I'm only playing the Swiss Army knife nations, or if all of the nations are Swiss Army knives. I know I have looked at other nations that have less robust rosters and are more focused in, like the ogres, for example, that type of scenario. But you know, it feels like almost everyone has recruit everywhere, or not recruit everywhere, but recruitable H3s, recruitable 120 leaderships, etc., etc., which is cool, but it also makes it feel less unique, if that makes sense. Regardless, that's not me complaining. It's just me chatting. So this general model, I love the mounted combatants models in the mod. They're really awesome. I love the little wings here, right? And it looks like this is a Sigmarite figure. They might not be wings because it looks like that's a Sigmarite figure holding the hammer of Sigmar, right? Which is really fucking cool. So, 120 leadership out of the gate, very good. Very tanky, very survivable on its own without needing to really babysit it a whole bunch. So cool. Happy about it. We have Initiates of Sigmar, which are your basic bitch priests. They are priest level 1 and sacred, and they've got nothing else happening. to my understanding. I don't expect we'll do many of them. Then we have the warrior priests of Sigmar, who are actually pretty cool, especially depending on who we're going up against, right? If we are going up against something like Nehekara, Vampiria, or Nagashasar, these guys could come in real fucking handy because obviously they're priests 2s, but they are also combat casters, so they can continue to nuke people even as the hordes of the undead roll over them. So pretty neat. Like that a lot. Very cool. We have the Witch Hunters, which are kind of neat. They are Inquisitors, right? So more efficient at preaching against other faiths. So if we need to do something like that, that is pretty cool. They have very high patrol bonus. They do cause unrest out the ass, which is a bit of a problem. They are anti-demon, which is cool if we need to go up against like a Slanesh or Khorne or even Nagarond in particular cases, right? Could be useful. And then they're also Priest 2, right? The Righteous Crossbow does additional damage versus undead and demons as well, but these are kind of hard to mass. These aren't really like a, oh, get a whole bunch of them for fighting the undead. They're more like, get like one or two of them for obliterating something big in the undead. So there's that. Then we have all of the college wizards, which we are going to come back to. We have the Bright Wizard, the Gray Wizard, the Celestial Wizard, the Amethyst Wizard, the Amber Wizard, the Light Wizard, the Jade Wizard, and the Gold Wizard. So 8 in total, 1 for each of the paths. We have the Scholar, which is only recruitable in the capital, which we talked about earlier. Very cheap and is Philosopher 1, meaning that they have improved research in sloth and worse research in productivity. So here's the thing. Actually, if you take Magic 3 and productivity, these guys are still a 13 researcher for 70 gold. So they're still not bad, right? They're just not crazy good, right? If you take no productivity and Magic 3, right? These guys are a 16. If you take Sloth 3 and Magic 3, these guys are a 19, and they are crazy research. I think that is how Altdorf went just bejesus crazy on the research scale last time when we were playing Gavenblight. I don't know. Like, we looked, right, like, at our stuff. I don't know how you do that and actually recruit their units. Unless you're saying, hey, I don't give a shit about any of our big units, or if we do care about them, we care about them only in the concept that we're going to get a couple here or there over the course of time. And instead, you rely on cheap resource units like the free infantry, state crossbows, or even starting to push being a little too much, state halberdiers too much. Probably I would be like, free infantry. I'd just be masses of free infantry, right? Because these guys can still kill. They're just going to die in droves. But at that point, maybe you don't matter. Or if you've got like some bless that you're going for the flagellants, then you could do, Sloth 3, Magic 3, some weird bless where you blow up a bunch of flagellants and go from there. And then just have crazy research from your scholars. But I am not a big fan of, especially against the AI, because I know how the AI goes, right? Like, it's one thing if you can diplomancer your way through players, right? If you're like, oh, I can make a bunch of naps and I can focus on one person, or I can just not fight at all. I can just tech up, right? I can be small and play tall, and then, 30 turns into the game, I can just Nova someone, right? That is doable in multiplayer in the right circumstances if you're lucky. That is not doable in single player. The AI is just gonna come at us real hard. I know it. So I'm not sure that this is something that we can do. Then we have the Archlector and the War Altar of Sigmar, which are both H3s. They're both cap only. So H3, that's all it is, 160 gold. Boom. There you go. Not even a good leader, nothing. It's just a bishop walking around with a stick going, Divine Blessing, right? That being said, they are not slow to recruit. So if we know we are bordering something like the, and they're not expensive, right? If we're bordering someone we know, like any of the undead individuals, then, Priest 3, sure, spit them out. And then we have the War Altar of Sigmar, which is slow to recruit. It is expensive. It is also an H3. It is size 6. It will trample the shit out of people. And it is a Dominion spreader. So this is actually kind of neat with the idea of, I could see in the mid to late game, just getting these, right? 1 Dominion spread chance per point each month is kind of interesting. And in point of fact, right, like I have considered the idea of doing a bless around these guys, but, and this is the thing that kills me, they are a size 6 unit that has 10 HP. These guys will die at the drop of a hat. Like they'll get shot with a crossbow or an arrow from a deer tribe and then just go bleh, and there's your 400 gold unit down the drain. They do spawn flagellants, but it's like, again, those flagellants aren't going to matter. They're going to run forward. They're going to die. This thing's going to get hit in the head with an arrow, and it's just going to bleed out. So, like, very interesting, and I absolutely can see using them in particular instances, right? But I don't know how you would arrange a, like, expansion around them, right? Altdorf actually is a very weird nation, I think, for me to consider blessing, truth be told. So, anyways, moving forward. Those are all of our units, our normal commander units, and then we have our college units, our college wizards. So let's take a look at each of these. We have the Bright Wizard, 150 gold. These things are so fucking cool. 150 gold. They are Fire 2. And they immediately cast Phoenix Power at the start of each battle, which is just means they're Fire 3. Except it, they could be Fire 3, and then you could manually cast them, or manually cast Phoenix Power at Fire 4. So I find this to be a really interesting kind of like balance point, right? They are effectively Fire 3s, right? However, you take away their scalability to throw them up as Fire 4s, and since this is only ever going to happen in battle, they're also Fire 2s for the concept of ritual and forging. So, like, I really like this. This is a really, really cool mechanic, in my opinion, because it gives them a lot of power, but it really bottles that power in the direction that you can take it, right? So this is really, really, really cool to me. They're also just a very, very effective mage, I think, for their price point. 150 gold is expensive for a 2-point mage, right? But they're not really a 2-point mage. They're a 3-point mage in battle. And they have Combat Caster, which is pretty nice because there are a lot of very short-ranged fire spells that will obliterate people if your individuals have the chance to cast them, which hopefully the Bright Wizards will. Then we have the Grey Wizard, which is pretty cool. 170 gold, Air 2 Mage with a chance to get Astral or Death. Both of which are pretty decent. The Death Mages you can turn into Wailing Winds or Wind of Death casters with a little bit of effort. The Astral ones are obviously great because you can communion them. Air 2 is pretty useful out of the gate. It can do things like Lightning Bolt. It can do things like Air Elementals, right? Pretty damn spot on. And these guys are naturally stealthy and spies, which is really, really cool because you can actually cloud trapeze these guys at the enemy and then stealth away, which is always super useful. Love this. These guys, very, very good. Cloud trapezing in, doing things like Air Elementals. This is great. These guys are fantastic. You have the Celestial Wizards, which are a bit of an interesting bag. They are Air 1, Astral 1, so you have that Astral Air guarantee for doing big battery communions like Thunderstrike communions. And they can be either Air 2 or Astral 2, both of which are useful. If you're Air 2, then that is very useful for getting higher up into some of the big air buffs, for putting up things like Storm, or putting up things like Fog Warriors. Higher Astral is the converse, all of the Astral buffs, etc., etc. These guys are pretty neat. They do have innate shock resistance, which is fun. They have Fortune Teller 8, which is actually pretty good. I mean, I think a lot of people come in at Fortune Teller 10. So Fortune Teller 8 is still pretty close to that, right? And then they have Adept Researcher 5. So these guys out of the gate, 16 research, not too bad, considering they are still a good combat mage as well. We have the Amethyst Wizard, which is another Adept Researcher, and this is great. It's a Death 2 mage that also has a Pip of Astral. Cool. Fantastic. Can join up communions, can Horde of Skeletons spam to no end. Fantastic. We have the Amber Wizard, and these guys are Earth 1, Nature 1, which is just outside of the range of being really, really, really useful. You need a pair of Earth Boots on them, right, to make them Earth 2, and you need a Thistle Mace, or I guess you can use a gem, and you can do things like Strength of Gaia to buff their nature further, or you can do, with Earth 2, you can do Earth Power to be Earth 3, right? Very, very interesting, but these are more difficult to actually make work. That being said, they are still pretty useful. Nature 2 out of the gate is pretty nice. Do a lot of things like I'm thinking mass protection, wooden warriors, right? You early on you can do things like wooden warriors, very nice, or very neatly with them, so very good. Light wizards are your higher astral out of the gate, I believe. Yes. Light wizards, higher astral out of the gate. No randoms or anything like that, which is unfortunate. But they also have this Mirror of Hysh thing, which is a 100. It's kind of like a Mind Blast, right? But it is just 3 magic damage, and it is 3 times versus demons and undead. And it's AoE 1, right? So this guy will 30 ammunition, 25 precision. He's basically going to hit every single time. You have like 5 of these guys, and they go and they just delete squares of long dead and things like that. So it's actually kind of neat. It's also armor piercing, so you can use it against stronger undead or demons. Pretty cool. But you can also, since they are higher astral, you can just use them for that, or you can rope them in with fire communions. So pretty neat. We have the Jade Wizard, which is a water nature crosspath. It's like the design of these. The design of these college wizards just have all of the best crosspaths, basically, except for astral and earth, unfortunately. So anyways, we have Jade Wizards, water and nature, with a air or nature out of the gate. These guys are somewhat more difficult to use. You can still use them very easily, though, for things like Moss Body early on, very strong. You can boost them up to be able to do things like Foul Vapors, right? Depending on the randoms that you get, you can do a couple of other interesting things as well. And at the end of the day, right, Water 1 is still useful, especially later on in the game, when you can do water bracelets very, very easily, turn it into a Water 2, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can do quite a few things with a Water 2. That's nice. That's fine, right? This is probably my least favorite mage out of the gate, but Moss Body is still super awesome, so it's nothing to just sniff at. And they are disease healers and provide some supply bonus, so that's kind of cool as well. And then we have the last but not least Gold Wizard. I say last but not least, these guys actually aren't super duper cool outside of the fact that they have a Forge bonus. I say that, but they are Earth 2, so that means Earth 3, Earth 4 with Earth boots. So pretty useful. I'm not a huge fan of the fire random, or not random, but the one fire in here. It is what it is, but Forge bonus 1 is, of course, super useful. It's not quite MA Olm tier, but, you know, still pretty good. Still going to be able to do Dwarven Hammers and then put, 5 costs down to 2 costs, but only for your Earth and Fire, right? But still useful. Okay, so those are all of the colleges, and it's almost kind of like analysis paralysis. Like, you have so many choices, especially in the beginning of the game. It feels very much like it's like, oh god, I can just do all the things. Oh god, which do I pick? Like, oh no. Right? So it's very interesting, but it's also kind of stressful. Aside from that, we have the tributes that we can pick up. And these are tributes for each of the different knightly orders. So what happens is when you recruit this, you will get a unique commander and a force of knights. And what you get is dependent, obviously, on which one, right? Each of these different orders being a different scenario. Subsequent recruitment will instead give you the same number of knights and an inferior, non-unique knightly commander, which is fine, right? But yeah, I say unfortunately, I think we can check. Yes, we can check here. So this is what we actually get with each of these. So the Reiksguard Knights we get as the leader, the Grand Master of the Reiksguard, Kurt Helborg, who has Sun Awe, which is pretty neat. Has super high protection, very high defense, good combat stats around the board, and has a Rune Fang, which is a pretty boss weapon out of the gate. High HP, so not super easily killed. Stupid good leadership, which is very neat. So yeah, very, very cool. We have the Reiksguard Knights, which are kind of just superior Empire Knights, honestly. They have the same type of stuff, just slightly better stats, I believe, across the board. So that's pretty cool. They also have Sun Awe, which is neat. If you do the Hunters, you get the Grandmaster of Sigmar's Hunters, which is Garrick Wildorn, who has the Axe of Hate built into his kit, which is cool. He also has the Zanbul Helmet, which is a cursed item. Grandmaster, Horns of a Great Zanbul, a Minotaur of Zinch. Granting him protection from magic. Interesting. Do you have higher magic resistance because of that? That's cool. It would also be cool if he had like a this kind of like a horned helmet, so he had like a gore attack. That would be pretty neat. And I don't honestly think that would be overpowered or anything like that. Good combat stats, pretty decent. You get the Hunters of Sigmar out of this. These are less robust than the Empire Knights or the Reiksguard Knights. They just aren't as tough, basically, right? But they have axes, and these things hit harder. They're not going to hit as hard as a lance, right? But they hit harder than the broadsword that you would have otherwise. So more consistently high damage, I guess, across the board. They also kind of feed themselves and have snow move and force survival, which is cool. We have the Demigryph Knights. Knight Griffin. What? Grandmaster of the Knights Griffin. Hans Duterberg. Same type of scenario. High protection, high defense skill, good combat stats. Has a lance, has a hoof, has a broadsword. Is sacred. So this is potentially interesting to me. These Demigryph Knights are not sacred, unfortunately. I was gonna be like, if they are sacred, we could be like, okay, this is what we're building sacreds around. But nope. So he is sacred, but they are not. He has the Duterberg Helm, which is a prized possession of the Duterberg family. Cursed. It's cursed, so you can't take it off, basically. Gives 20 head protection. Pretty nice. Okay, cool. He comes with Demigryph Knights and Knight Griffins. I'm assuming a collage of both. Okay. See, maybe this is the situation where these gained lances and the other ones didn't, because I feel like both should have lances. Right? Like this has a lance, and then this Demigryph Order Knight should also have a lance. Right? Like, because without a lance, this is just not as good comparatively as like something like this. Right? I feel like that is the case. Anyways, these with a lance, really fucking scary. And it is a heavy lance, so there's that. So that's cool. And then we have the Knight Griffins, which are just knightly versions of the same thing. We have the Blazing Sun. This is Brunt's Offleman, who has the Blazing Lance of Myrmidia, which is pretty cool. Has a little fire damage. Area of effect 5. Okay, he does have enough to... Okay, gotcha. Make sure he has enough to survive that. And then he has a Morning Star. Very cool. He causes fear, awe. He has a Heretic. Interesting. Oh, right, because these are Order of the Blazing Sun worships Myrmidia, so that's funny. Cool. Knights of the Blazing Sun also have fire resistance, also have lances, Morningstar, pretty good across the board. And then we have the Fiery Heart, Grandmaster of the Fiery Heart, Andreas Wolf, the Sword of Fire and Ice. Okay, that's cool. So he can't hit himself with this, right? It's an AoE weapon, but it's an AoE 1 weapon, meaning that he can never be in the square that he is hitting. Meaning it should be fine. It should be fine, because this is not enough resistance to prevent him from hurting himself otherwise, but that should be how it works. So Fiery Heart is sacred, is a priest 1. I hope that means that his knights are sacred. Okay. They have a lance, broadsword. They have built-in, a little bit of built-in fire and cold. Not much, though. That could be cool, though, right? Like, that could be cool. Doing a little bless for them. Okay, so 11 knights and 4 Demigryph Knights. 15 knights. 12 knights. 12 knights. And 8 Sacred Knights. 800 gold! Hey, yeah. Okay, well, if you say that he is, if you say that he's like 200 gold, right? How much are we saying? We're saying that's like 75 gold a knight. These Demigryph Order Knights are 65 gold, right? 35 gold for these Order Knights. And these Order Knights are 21 protection, 15 defense, 11 strength. 21, 15, 11. Same strength, slightly higher defense, lower protection out of the gate. I don't know that that's worth it. I mean, obviously they're sacred, right? Like, so you can give them a bless, but my god, we would have to go hard in the paint to make that a, and it would be so difficult, right? Like, we absolutely would not be able to afford it for like the first several turns. Oof. Oof. Like, depending on what it is, it could be worthwhile if we could also just mass flagellants, right? Flagellants elsewhere, right? And take advantage of both. But that's a hard sell. That is a hard sell. The Knights Griffin are 1,100 gold. Oh my god! Save for the Reichsguard. Crikey. Goodness gracious, too much. Knights of the Blazing Sun are actually the cheapest at 650. That feels like a fucking bargain compared to what's going on with the rest of these. Like, honestly, that's pretty interesting. And then these guys are only 550, so they're relatively cheap. But I don't know that they're honestly worth it. They're okay, right? They're fine. They'll do work, but they're not like, oh my goodness. So, okay, that's pretty interesting. That's the whole of the lineup. We have luck dependent or luck independent heroes, and then we have multi-heroes, which are luck dependent heroes. So, and then we have Altdorf summons. So let's take a look at each of these real quick. We have luck independent heroes, so we can just get these throughout the game, period, because they're champions of Altdorf. So we have Champion of the Emperor Ludwig Schwarzhelm, which is, this guy's pretty cool. He is inspirational, which is interesting because he's inspirational, but he only has 40 leadership. He has a Broadsword of Justice, which is cool. Just, he looks really, really pretty, but honestly, he's not like that crazy otherwise. He doesn't have a shield, and the broadsword is not two-handed, so that's interesting. Oh, because he carries, I guess in theory he's holding the standard, right? Interesting. We have the Patriarch of the Bright College. This is my man, Balthazar Gelt. I've played way too much fucking Total War Warhammer and played way too many fucking sessions of Balthazar Gelt. I love Gelt. He's fucking great. Fucking the best. And he's actually a really strong mage, too. Pretty high HP, survivable, considering what he has going on. Fire 4, Earth 1, Death 1, pretty decent. Can do some interesting-ish cross-path stuff. Mostly he's just there to, like, bombard things with fire, though. Built-in super high fire resistance. He's perfectly safe. Built-in fire shield, very cool. Has firepower, so stronger. Actually, like, quite killy in Heat 3, right? Which is kind of neat. Has Farcaster, which is very strong, actually. And he has Combat Caster, which is pretty fucking dope. So. Oh, is this not Balthazar Gelt? Hold the phone. Oh, no, this is Gorman. Ah! Okay, that's cool. Never mind. Automatically cast Phoenix Power on battle start, so that's cool. Okay. Well, I'm less excited now because it's not Gelt. But Gelt is still, I mean, Gorman's still cool. Dearest Gorman, Patriarch of the Bright College. Cool. He's taken his loss well and sworn loyalty to Gelt, but his fiery nature ensures he will be first amongst the challengers in the next meeting. In preparation of their rematch, Gorman has crafted a magical staff said to contain the tear of an Emperor Dragon, which is amplified his pyromantic prowess, and granted him the ability to project his magic over great distances and with incredible accuracy. As a fire mage, Gorman is arguably unsurpassed in the old world. It would kind of be cool, like, we got it in the model. It would kind of be cool to have that as a weapon, honestly. I mean, I know it's represented in this stuff, but it would kind of be cool to have it as a weapon. Anyways, that's cool. Patriarch, we have Karl Franz, the Emperor himself, which is questionable that he's not sacred, but I'll just go with it. I don't know that he needs to be sacred, but you know how it'd be. Very high protection, pretty decent stats, has a rune playing, rides Deathclaw. Deathclaw is really cool. Invulnerable 10, Fear 8. Very, very nice. Rune Fang hits hard. Deathclaw hits pretty fucking hard. So, yeah. Flying does not have boot slots. I don't know if he can get rid of the Rune Fang, so I think that's why he only has one hand slot open. So there's that. Very cool. And then we have the voice of Sigmar, Luther Huss, who is pretty cool. Priest 3, Blessed. I don't know that I've ever read that as Blessed. He has Awe 2, he has Halt Heretic. Pretty cool. He is an Inquisitor, he spreads Dominion, and he is a combat caster. He's pretty boss. Pretty cool. Pretty neat. So those are the luck independent heroes. And then multi-heroes, luck-based multi-heroes that we can get. We can get all of these. I don't know why. 1, 2, 3, 4. We only have 4 of the wizards kind of like reflected here. I'm not sure why that is the case, but it is the case. So it be what it be, I suppose. Not a big deal. We have the Noble of the Empire, which is just another Griffin Rider, which is fucking cool, but not overly a big deal, right? Not sacred. Just something that you can kit out and do some stuff with, which is all right, you know. We've got the Wizard Lords, right? So Bright Wizard Lord. Meadows. Via comparison to the Bright Wizard, the Bright Wizard Lord comes along with more fire, automatically casts firepower, so goes up to 4 automatically, but also, like Gorman, comes in with Earth and Death. Normally not that big of a deal, but can be potentially nice, and also has a built-in firebrand, which can be pretty cool. Very, very neat. We have the Grey Wizard, which is, I believe... Yeah, just adds... No, that's the Amethyst Wizard, sorry. Grey Wizard over here. Just guarantees both of his paths, basically. So we have a 2 air, 1 astral, 1 death. So he's got all of the paths that he could have. And then he also gets another astral death. So pretty cool. Has storm power, which is pretty neat. Has storm immunity, which is very neat. Pretty nice shit. Flying. All that good stuff. Not sure. I mean, with storm power up, right? It's only storm power 1, though, is the thing. So storm power 1 is going to be nice, but it's not going to be, like, the craziest thing in existence. Is what it is. We have a Light Wizard Lord. These guys were Fire Astral 2. Fire 1, Astral 2. And now are Fire 1, Astral 3, Earth 1, Nature 1. So they're just spreading out like the what can you put in a communion, right, type situation. which is nice because prior to that, you don't have the crystal crosspath, which is Earth and Astral. These guys are also healers, which is pretty neat. So that's cool. And then we have the Celestial Wizards. These guys, where were they? Over here, Celestial Wizards. They're the Air Astral crosspath. So these guys come in with higher Air, higher Astral, and Earth to mix that in with the random of higher Air and even higher Astral. And then they're really, really good fortune tellers. So yeah, pretty cool. So those are your luck-dependent multi-heroes, which is neat. Again, I don't know why, because these are the exact same. I don't know why the rest of the wizard lords are not included in the multi-heroes. Maybe Sombre has a particular reason. But if they're not, if there isn't a real reason, I think it would be cool to just have those all added in. So aside from that, we have the Amethyst Wizard Lord, who has Air added in, Astral 1, Death 2. Yeah, so has an Air 1 mixed in, and then is better Astral, better Death, which is pretty cool. They also have a Soul Scythe, which is it will raise those killed as soulless, and it has a Soul Slay effect, which is pretty neat. I don't know that it's super important because of like how you're gonna use that very well without losing this rather valuable unit. But yeah, there is that. There's the Gold Wizard Lord, which is amped up from Fire 1, Earth 2 to Fire 2, Earth 3, Water 2, which is pretty cool. Retains their Forge bonus of 1. I didn't really talk about the explosive flask that they also have, which is kind of neat, but it's also kind of whatever. I've seen this in a couple little games here or there, and this actually can like fuck over your own people because the wizards will sometimes be like, "Yeah," and yeah, it's a little sketch. Anyways, so this is cool. This is a neat little addition. The Fire-Water crosspath is relatively rare, but you can actually do some pretty nice things with it. So that's kind of cool. And then we already saw Bright Wizard, already saw Gray Wizard, already saw Light Wizard, already saw Celestial Wizard. So the Jade Wizard Lord, Water, Nature, Air, and Earth, versus Water 2, Nature 2, Priest 2, or Priest 1, and then 2 Air, 2 Earth, which is pretty cool, because if you get lucky, right, you could have a very powerful Nature Earth Mage. If you get lucky, you can have a Cloud Trapezing Mage, and their Disease Healer upgrades into a actual healer. So that's kind of cool. And then the Amber Wizard gets a bear, which is super fucking... Everyone else gets a horse. The Amber Wizard gets a bear, which is fucking dope. Love that. So Amber Wizard has Nature 1, Earth 1, Nature 2. And the Amber Wizard Lord has Air 1, Earth 1, Nature 3, which is actually kind of nice because that means out of the gate, I say that, but that's actually not good. I would actually argue for this not being this way. Somber notes. L. Okay. I guess this is fine, right? Like, so the issue that I have here is that an Amber Wizard out of the gate can do Earth Boots, be Earth 2, do Summon Earth Power, be Earth 3, which is pretty nice. The with a Thistle Mace, right? So Earth Boots being Earth 2, right? Thistle Mace puts them at Nature 2. So or Nature 3. So your Earth 2, Nature 2, you can do something like Strength of Gaia, and then your Nature 4, and then you can pretty easily do something like Gaia's Blessing, right? Because you will need to... Gaia's Blessing is 3 cost, 3 nature gems, but it's Nature 5, so you'll be 1 under, so you'll be able to spend 1 gem to boost up, and then 3 gems to cast Gaia's Blessing. But you can't cast Gaia's Blessing, it's Nature's 5, Earth 2, so you can't cast Gaia's Blessing if you're just Earth 1. So, by putting the Amber Wizard Lord on the bear, but not boosting up there, I would actually rather the boost be in Earth than in Nature, because now these guys can't do... They're slightly better Nature mages, sure, but now they can't do Nature Earth as well from a cross path, right? Now, obviously, you could still do them with the regular Amber Wizards, but this feels like a little bit of a downgrade. And I don't feel like the air is gonna matter that much. There are certain things that you can do with like air earth, though. That's kind of cool. Like, I do like that, but I'm not a fan of this, of losing the foot slot and only staying at 1 earth. So that's kind of like a little complaint that I would have there. It feels like... that doesn't feel like a power-up to me. That feels like a sideline, right? It feels like... Because I feel what I would say is any Wizard Lord, I would assume is should be able to do their lower counterparts' job, but better, right? You obviously probably don't want to use them for only that. They should be doing bigger stuff, right? But they should be able to do whatever their lower counterpart is, but better. This actually feels like you can't. Like, the Amber Wizard you'll still want to have around to do X, and the Amber Wizard Lord will need to do Y, right? But he won't be able to do X. And that's kind of a bad feeling. Really cool, like that it's on a bear. Very neat, right? But IDK. Also, what's up with this differing claw scenario? We have 1 claw that's 14 damage and 1 claw that's 16 damage. Question mark? I mean, that, again, fine. But it's a little weird. Anyways, still very, very neat unit. Cool stuff. Okay. I'm making notes real quick. Sorry. Because I'm trying to be helpful and report things to Sombre. Altdorf. Okay. Alrighty then. Yeah, I think this is gonna be... We've now reviewed all of the units for Altdorf, which is cool. They are truly a Swiss Army knife. The only kind of like non-tool that they don't have is a powerful sacred or a powerful producible sacred, right? Like these fiery heart individuals are pretty interesting, but I don't know that they're practical to build a bless around, right? At such a gold expense, that is pretty excruciating to try to build around that. But we might try to do it anyways, because the alternative is, and I'm fine with the alternative, but the alternative is that we just do scales. That being said, I do kind of feel like Altdorf is a scales nation, right? Like I feel like that's what they're intended to be. They're intended to have good scales and make use of the fact that they just have a crazy mage lineup that they can selectively be like, we want the solution to this problem, right? And they just go ham from there. And then they just, fill in the ranks with, do we need a powerful line that can chop against like giants? Here's some great swords, right? Do we just need to hold the line? Cool. Here's some Reichsguard or some State Swordsmen or what have you, right? Do we need to charge in? Cool. Here's some Order Knights. Put them on the flank. Do we need to shoot the shit out of something? Here's a State Crossbow, right? They've got really good answers basically across the board, I think, for almost anything. So it definitely feels pretty scales. That being said, we will make that decision on the next video. If you're watching on Twitch, stick around. We're going to keep playing. If you're watching on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed this kind of like walk through Altdorf, seeing what's going on. We'll see you next time for more Dominions Warhammer Fantasy. Bye-bye, everybody. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. It really helps me out. If you'd like to see me live, head over to my Twitch at twitch.tv/thedistanthorizon.